He who dominates silence dominates all relationships. You may not understand this immediately, but let me repeat it, because these words are not merely to be heard, they must be absorbed like fragrance into your being. He who dominates silence dominates all relationships. Why? Because silence is the ultimate language, and every other language is just a distortion of what silence already knows. When you meet someone, you think you are relating through words. You talk, you explain, you justify, you seduce, you defend. But in truth, before even a single word is spoken, the real communication has already happened through the vibration of your silence or the noise within you. If your silence is chaotic, anxious, filled with need, that is what you transmit. You may smile, but your silence trembles. You may say, "I love you," but your silence reveals fear. You may pretend peace, but your silence exposes restlessness. The art of silence is the most mysterious, the most intuitive, and the most spiritual art a human being can master. Because only when silence becomes your companion do you start to see beyond the masks of others, beyond the words, beyond the gestures, beyond the stories. You begin to sense truth directly without translation. And that is what gives you real power in relationships. Not dominance over others, but freedom from being dominated by their chaos. I have watched people all my life, lovers trying to connect through endless words, families shouting their affection across emotional walls, friends explaining themselves to death. They don't know that words are only the surface ripples of a deeper ocean. True intimacy begins only when two silences meet, when your inner noise disappears and you can feel the presence of another without the need to fill the space between you. When you dominate silence, you are no longer in a hurry to fix, to explain, to be understood. You allow existence to speak through the spaces, through the pauses. This makes you mysterious. People cannot read you because you are not written in their language anymore. You belong to the unknown. You move differently, you respond differently. You are intuitive because intuition is born out of silence. You are spiritual because spirit is nothing but silence vibrating in consciousness. Have you ever noticed that the most profound moments in life are always silent? When you fall in love for a second, words vanish. When you face death, silence surrounds you. When you are overwhelmed by beauty, a sunset, a child's eyes, the ocean, there are no words. In those moments, existence reveals its truth. Silence is the essence. Everything else is decoration. And yet humanity fears silence more than anything. People are terrified of it. Sit them in a quiet room for 5 minutes, and they become restless, checking their phones, inventing distractions. Why? Because silence mirrors the chaos they carry inside. It exposes the truth they have been running from, that their entire life has been noise. When I say dominate silence, I do not mean control it like a dictator. I mean surrender to it so completely that it dominates you. And in that surrender, a miracle happens. Silence starts to flow through your actions, your words, your eyes. You begin to communicate without saying a thing. Your presence itself becomes a transmission. A man who dominates silence can sit in front of another and transform him without a single word. His silence is contagious. It reaches into the other's heart and rearranges something. This is not charisma. It is consciousness. Charisma attracts. Consciousness transforms. Every relationship you have, whether with your lover, your friend, your child, is a mirror. If you are silent within, the mirror reflects peace. If you are noisy, the mirror reflects chaos. People react to your vibration long before they respond to your words. That is why you can say all the right things and still be misunderstood, because the real message was never in the words. It was in the silence behind them. When I was young, I used to sit for hours by the river. No one had taught me meditation. I simply watched the ripples, the play of sunlight on water, the stillness beneath the movement. Slowly I began to see that the river was teaching me, not through words but through its silence. Even when it made sound, that sound was rooted in a deeper silence. And then I realized, existence is constantly speaking in silence. The trees, the stars, the birds, all are singing the same silent song. Only man is out of tune. To dominate silence is to return to the music of existence. It is to live in tune with what is. It is to become transparent enough that the divine can see through you. And when that happens, every relationship becomes sacred, because you are no longer relating from ego, from demand, from need. You are relating from presence. When two silent beings meet, it is not a meeting, it is a merging. No words are exchanged, yet everything is understood. That is love in its purest form. That is friendship in its truest essence. And that is spirituality. To live from silence, to love from silence, to die into silence. Most people think communication is about words. I tell you, communication begins when words end. You see, the mind is terrified of silence because silence exposes its non-existence. The mind survives through noise, through continuous inner chatter. It is like a parasite that feeds on your thoughts. The moment you become silent, the mind loses its food. That is why you resist it. That is why you fill every gap with words, with distractions, with endless social connections that never touch your soul. But if you dare to enter silence, you begin to see, not with the eyes, not with logic, but with intuition. Intuition is not thinking. It is seeing without thoughts. It is the direct perception of truth. And the more silent you become, the sharper your intuition grows. Then, in your relationships, you start to perceive what is unsaid. You sense when someone is lying, not by what they say, but by the vibration behind their words. You know when someone loves you, even when they remain silent. You can feel when someone's presence nourishes you, and when it drains you. Silence gives you the eyes of the soul. You stop relating to others through their personalities, their masks, their roles, and you begin to relate to their being. And that changes everything, because personalities are temporary, but being is eternal. The moment you can see someone's being, you can no longer judge them. You can no longer manipulate or be manipulated. Compassion becomes natural, not as a moral duty, but as the fragrance of understanding. You ask me, how can I dominate silence in this world of noise? I say, don't fight the noise. Simply become aware of it. The first step towards silence is awareness. Sit quietly and just listen to the noise of your mind. Don't try to stop it. Don't condemn it. Watch it like you would watch clouds moving across the sky. Slowly, the watcher becomes stronger and the noise weaker. Then one day, the clouds are gone and only the clear sky remains. That is silence. And that silence is not empty. It is full of energy, full of insight. When you live from that silence, your relationships stop being strategies of survival. You no longer need others to complete you. You are already complete. You share out of abundance, not out of emptiness. Most relationships fail because they are based on need. Two beggars cannot celebrate together. They can only share their misery. But two silent beings, two overflowing hearts, can celebrate without depending on each other. They give without calculating. They love without demanding. They live without controlling. And this is what I mean when I say, he who dominates silence dominates all relationships, because such a person cannot be manipulated. No guilt, no emotional blackmail, no drama can touch him. His silence is his armor and his temple. He does not react, he responds. He is not predictable because his responses come from presence, not from past conditioning, and that makes him magnetic. People are drawn to his calmness, his depth, his mystery. Look around you. Everyone is shouting to be heard, yet nobody is listening. Everyone is trying to prove something, to show something, to impress someone. But the silent one has nothing to prove. He is enough. He can sit in a room full of noise and remain untouched. He doesn't compete for attention because his presence is attention itself. His silence is not passive. It radiates power, the kind of power that doesn't dominate others but liberates them. You will find that when you start to live from silence, people will misunderstand you. They will say you are distant, cold, detached. They cannot understand silence because they have never tasted it. Their idea of love is noise. Their idea of connection is constant communication. But you must not compromise your silence to fit into their restlessness. Let your silence be your rebellion. Let it be your revolution. The world is not destroyed by violence alone. It is destroyed by noise, the continuous psychological noise of opinions, ideologies, judgments. If more people could learn the language of silence, wars would disappear. Because silence is communion. It connects what words divide. It heals what minds wound. Have you noticed that when you sit with someone you truly love, you can be silent together, and it feels complete? That is the test of real relationship, when silence between two people is comfortable, even beautiful. When you can be together without needing to talk, without needing to entertain or explain. Because then being itself becomes communication. That is when love becomes prayer. And when I say dominate silence, I am not giving you a technique. I'm inviting you to rediscover your nature. Silence is not something to achieve. It is something you have forgotten. It is already there beneath the clutter. You were born in silence and you will die into silence. In between, you make noise and call it life. When you realize this, when you start living from that deep pool of quiet awareness, you become intuitive. You start to see connections where others see coincidences. You feel guided by something larger than yourself. You stop forcing and start flowing. You begin to sense when to speak and when to remain silent, and both become equally powerful. Then, every relationship becomes a meditation, every word a prayer, every silence a blessing. That is the mystery of silence. It gives you the sensitivity to touch others' souls without touching their bodies. It gives you the insight to understand others without invading their privacy. It gives you the strength to love without attachment and to let go without bitterness. And one day when your silence becomes total, even death will not frighten you, because silence is eternal. It was there before you were born, and it will remain when your words have turned to dust. There comes a moment when silence no longer feels like absence but presence, a vast living intelligence moving through you. When that happens, you begin to see how ridiculous the ego is. The ego is nothing but a collection of noises, opinions, memories, fears, desires, constantly whispering, I, me, mine. And yet, in silence, all of it disappears. The noise stops, and for the first time, you meet yourself. It is astonishing to realize that what you thought was you was only an echo of the world. Your parents, your teachers, your society, they filled you with voices. Be this, don't be that. Achieve this, fear that. You became a collage of borrowed sounds. Silence strips them away one by one until only the naked truth remains. And that truth is not a voice, it is a presence, wordless and infinite. When you encounter that inner silence, your relationships are reborn. Because now you are no longer relating as a personality, you are relating as pure being. Words become simple tools, no longer weapons, no longer masks. You speak because something real moves through you, not because you are afraid of silence. This is the beauty of a silent being. Even when he speaks, his words carry the fragrance of stillness. People come to me and say, Osho, I want to love deeply, but I am afraid of being hurt. I tell them, the one who loves from noise is always hurt, because his love is expectation disguised as affection. But the one who loves from silence cannot be hurt, because he does not seek anything. He gives because he is overflowing. If the other receives, beautiful. If not, beautiful. His silence protects his love, because it keeps it free from demand. When you dominate silence, you dominate your reactions. Others can shout, criticize, insult, but you remain still inside, watching. That watching is power. That watching breaks the chain of mechanical reaction that keeps humanity enslaved. You no longer live as a puppet pulled by every emotion, every opinion, every stimulus. You become the master of your energy. And something miraculous happens. People begin to feel safe in your presence, not because you promise safety, but because your silence offers it. They sense that with you, they can relax. They do not need to pretend. They do not need to perform. They can be themselves because your silence accepts everything. This is real intimacy. When silence meets silence and all masks fall away, do you understand the difference between domination and presence? The world's domination is based on fear and control. The domination of silence is based on freedom and love. The silent one does not dominate others. He dominates himself. He governs the kingdom within. He is the emperor of his own consciousness. His relationships reflect that sovereignty. They are no longer wars of ego, but dances of awareness. In silence, intuition becomes your guide. You don't plan your words. They arise spontaneously. You don't manipulate outcomes. You trust existence. You start to feel that life itself is speaking through you. You are no longer the doer. You are the instrument. And when that happens, everything around you aligns in mysterious harmony. People call it coincidence, but it is not coincidence. It is synchronicity. The universe starts responding to your inner silence. This is what makes a silent person magnetic. It's not charm, not personality. It's presence. You can feel it even without looking. You enter a room and you sense someone who is utterly at ease with himself. His silence touches you before his words do. His eyes are calm, but alive. His gestures are soft, but powerful. You may not understand why, but something in you relaxes. That is the power of silence. It communicates without intention. When you are silent, you stop trying to fix others. You understand that everyone's journey is unique. You offer your presence, not your interference. This changes the very fabric of your relationships. Instead of creating tension, you create space, and that space becomes healing. In your silence, others hear themselves more clearly. But remember, this path is not for the timid. Silence will confront everything false within you. It will strip away your comfort zones, your self-images, your illusions of control. You will feel naked before existence. You will want to escape. That is the moment to stay. Because only when you stop running from silence do you discover that what you feared as emptiness is, in truth, fullness, the fullness of being. People ask, Osho, how do I know I am growing in silence? I say, notice how your relationships change, when you no longer need to win arguments, when you can listen without formulating your reply, when you can be with someone without needing them to fill your loneliness, when you can forgive effortlessly because there is no one left to be offended. Then you are growing in silence. The mind thinks silence is lifeless. It fears that without noise, life will lose meaning. But silence is not death, it is depth. It is the background that gives meaning to every sound, every gesture, every moment. Without silence, words are empty shells. With silence, even a glance can carry eternity. When you start living from that depth, you move differently. Your actions become simple but significant. You say less, but what you say penetrates deeply. You don't try to convince. Your being itself is the argument. Your silence speaks louder than sermons. People listen not because you demand attention, but because they feel something ancient, something real emanating from you. You begin to live like a mystic in the marketplace, fully engaged in the world, yet untouched by its noise. You walk through chaos, but carry calmness. You relate, but you don't cling. You love, but you don't lose yourself. You give, but you remain whole. This is the paradox of silence. It makes you both powerful and humble, mysterious and transparent, detached and deeply compassionate. It makes you human and divine at once. And when others look into your eyes, they will not see ambition or anxiety. They will see vastness. They will see the sky looking back. When silence becomes your center, everything transforms, not because the world changes, but because your perception does. You begin to hear the music hidden in the ordinary. The rustling of leaves becomes a dialogue. The whisper of the wind becomes a teaching. Even the hum of a busy street becomes a reminder that silence is everywhere, waiting behind the noise. You start to see that existence itself is silence expressing itself as sound. This is the paradox that only silence can reveal, that sound and silence are not opposites. They are partners in an eternal dance. Without silence, sound cannot exist. Without sound, silence cannot be known. When you understand this, you stop escaping from the world and start celebrating it. You can be in the marketplace and remain in meditation. You can talk, laugh, cry, and yet a deep stillness remains untouched inside you. That stillness is your true home. People believe spirituality means renouncing life, running away to a monastery or a mountain. But I tell you, true spirituality is to live in the middle of life and remain silent within. That is mastery. Anyone can be silent in a cave. The real test is to be silent in love, in conflict, in the noise of relationships. When you can listen to your partner's anger and still feel peace inside, you are no longer human. You have entered the realm of the divine. To dominate silence is to become free from reaction. It means you no longer let others decide your state of being. Their words may be sharp, but they cannot wound you. Their praise may be sweet, but it does not intoxicate you. You are anchored in something deeper. You have discovered a source that cannot be touched by the world. This is what the mystics called the kingdom of God within. And this is why silence is the highest form of intelligence. It is not dull, it is not passive. It is alert, vibrant, alive. From silence arises insight, not knowledge, but understanding. Knowledge belongs to the mind. Understanding belongs to silence. Knowledge divides. Understanding unites. Through knowledge you argue. Through silence you see. When you start to live through understanding, relationships no longer become transactions. You stop asking, "What can I get?" and begin to ask, "What can I give?" You see that giving is receiving, that love grows when it is shared. This realization can only blossom in silence because silence removes fear. Fear is the root of all possessiveness. In silence, you see that nothing belongs to you, not even your body, not even your thoughts. You are just a space through which life flows. Once you taste that, everything becomes sacred. Touch becomes prayer. Breath becomes meditation. Presence becomes communion. You start to feel a subtle connectedness with all things, not as a belief, but as direct experience. The tree outside your window, the stranger passing by, the bird flying in the sky, they are all part of the same silence vibrating in different forms. Then the boundaries between I and you begin to dissolve. And in that dissolution, love is born, not the love of possession, but the love of oneness. There are moments when my own silence has spoken more than 1,000 words could ever say. Sitting with my disciples, sometimes I would close my eyes, and suddenly the whole room would become electric. No one moved, no one dared to breathe too loudly. It was as if time had stopped. That silence was not emptiness, it was fullness overflowing. In that space, understanding would descend without words. People would cry, laugh, or simply sit still, feeling something ancient awakening in their hearts. That is the communion of silence. You too can create such spaces in your life. Sit with your lover, your child, your friend, and instead of filling the air with explanations and stories, sit in silence for a while. Look into each other's eyes without trying to interpret anything. You will be amazed at what emerges. The real connection begins when the mind stops interfering. Silence allows the soul to speak. Do not mistake silence for the absence of communication. In truth, it is the highest form of it. Two people in silence are communicating essence to essence, being to being. The words we use are like bridges, useful but temporary. Silence is the ocean beneath all bridges. Once you learn to swim in that ocean, you no longer need bridges at all. The mystery of silence is that it cannot be practiced. It can only be remembered. Because silence is your natural state. You were born in it, you carry it within you, and you will return to it when this body falls away. Every night, in deep sleep, you return to silence, and that's why you wake up refreshed. Sleep is the poor man's meditation. Meditation is the rich man's sleep. Both are doors to the same silence. So when I say he who dominates silence dominates all relationships, understand this. He who knows his own inner silence cannot be dominated by life, by people, or by circumstances. He is free. He relates, but he is not entangled. He loves, but he is not enslaved. He gives, but he is not exhausted, because everything he does arises from the infinite source of silence within. Look at a lake on a windless night. Its surface is so still that it reflects the moon perfectly. Now imagine the same lake disturbed by waves. The reflection is broken. The moon is still there, but you cannot see it. Your consciousness is that lake, and silence is its stillness. When you are still, the divine is reflected perfectly in you. That is enlightenment. And the beauty of it is that it is not something far away. It is here, now. In this very moment, between my words, there is silence. In your listening, there is silence. That silence is the door. You don't have to seek it. Just stop running from it. To dominate silence is not to own it. It is to be owned by it. It is to let the vast ocean of stillness claim you completely. Then your life stops being a series of disconnected moments and becomes a continuous flow of awareness. You are no longer the doer, you are the witness. You no longer live in fragments, you live in wholeness. Most people live like broken mirrors, reflecting only pieces of themselves. They have forgotten the stillness that could unite them. They chase relationships to fill their inner cracks, to escape the noise inside. But unless you have found peace with your own silence, every relationship will be a repetition of the same restlessness. You will keep attracting people who mirror your inner noise, and no amount of talking, promising, or explaining will save you, because the problem is not between you and them, it is between you and your silence. When silence becomes your companion, you stop needing validation. You realize that to be understood is not as important as to be real. You no longer perform for others because existence itself becomes your audience. and existence understands silence better than any human ever could. The beauty of silence is that it makes you transparent. You no longer carry the weight of image. You no longer hide behind opinions. You live naked, vulnerable, yet invincible. Because what can the world do to one who no longer fears misunderstanding? What can be taken from one who has already surrendered everything to silence? That is the ultimate freedom, not political, not social, but existential. Freedom from the mind, from the compulsion to explain, from the hunger for approval. You walk through the world like a silent flame, untouched by the winds of opinion. You may be misunderstood, criticized, even rejected, but your silence remains unshaken because it does not depend on agreement. Such a person transforms relationships without effort. His very presence heals because it carries no demand. His silence acts like fire. It burns away falseness. It exposes the masks others wear, but also invites them to drop them. In his company, people begin to feel safe enough to be authentic. And that is the greatest gift one human being can offer another, the permission to be real. If you can offer that to someone, your silent presence, your undivided attention, your unspoken